Hey folks, how you doing? Nick Jennison, it's the Monday Guitar Show. I've been having far too much fun with a brand new backing track. Today's mission has been, prior to streaming of course, today's mission has been to make a bunch of new tracks for you guys to play along with as part of your Lick Library membership. Lick Library members, don't forget, you get a load of free backing tracks. This new one that you listen to in the key of C# minor is one that I've been making today, and I've been having far too much fun with it, so I thought I'd just jam forever and a day on it apparently. But hi folks, welcome on board. It's the Monday Guitar Show. It's great to have you. We're doing the thing that we do on Mondays, which is hang out and talk about the guitar. If I sound a little hoarse, have done an awful lot of singing this weekend. It's been a weekend of many shows, and the shows have been good, and it's been nice to get out there and kind of, I guess, get back to playing live. It's been a minute with all the traveling and with the Christmas break and all that sort of deal. So it's nice to kind of get back to it. Got soaked in the rain today, so my hair is a mess, but I'm okay with all of this. So hoarse voice, sore fingers, all that sort of business. Even still, having a good time, happy to be here. If you are new, welcome. We do this every Monday. We hang out on stream, we answer your questions, we discuss one or many topics that are related to improving you as a guitar player with the objective of making you a slightly better guitar player when you leave than when you arrived, or in some cases a significantly better guitar player. It depends. Sometimes we have these big hits. Excuse me, I'm going to cough. Did say I was a little bit hoarse. Sometimes we have these huge hits, sometimes it's just a little bit of something. I feel like today is going to be something that most folks are going to be able to take things away from, because we are chatting about how to kickstart your practice after a break. Now, what I mean by a break can be defined in several different ways. We can define it as a break from playing the guitar full stop, i.e. you haven't picked the guitar up in a significant period of time, or we can consider it a break from formalized practice, i.e. you've been playing a lot but you haven't really been putting the hours in to improve per se. Now this requires us to define our terms, including the definition of practice that I work from. This is not the definition, it's just the way that I define practice, which is structured guitar playing with the intent of improving your skills or musicality or some other aspect of your playing that you want to improve, versus the two other things we can do with the guitar, which are playing with the subsets of performance, jamming, noodling, playing, which is where the music or making sounds on the guitar, the noise that we're making, is our sole intent. We're not worried about necessarily getting better, we're just worried about making cool sounds. The other one in the middle being rehearsal, which is where we practice material to be performed later. We learn licks, we learn songs to play in a band, or to play at a buskers night, or just to play for the fun of it. Those three states are things that I have posited as a way of kind of categorizing what I'm talking about. Now, this is not me saying, hey look, these are the only ways that you can operate a guitar. Far from it. This is just me giving you a way to kind of conceptualize what I'm talking about. So when I talk about practice, this is what I'm talking about. Trying to improve your skills on the instrument. So whether you've had a break from practice because you've just been playing a lot, or you've had a break from playing the guitar full stop, today we're going to talk about some methods and strategies and approaches that you can use to kickstart your return to practicing. But before we do that, we got to say some hellos, because we've got a whole crew of regular streamers in the house, and I would be remiss not to say hi to everybody. Timothy Appling is the first one through. You are in fact the first one today, followed closely by Marcin 1 minute later, who was busy practicing, and that is a very valid excuse in my world. PJ is tuning in. Timothy also agrees, practicing guitar is the best excuse. I was sitting here eating lunch and I came to the site. No one was here yet. We did launch the stream a little bit late today. That was a me problem. But yes, we are here. I'm glad that you guys are here too. We got a lot of folks tuning in. If you are watching, by the way, don't forget to give the video a thumbs up. It really does help us reach more guitar players like yourself who may get a kick out of the stuff that we're doing here, and also who we'd love to have in the chat so we can just kind of chat back and forward about the guitar, because it's a big hangout at the end of the day. Marcin says, exactly, got my two guitars from much needed services and can't stop playing them. You know, there's nothing quite like, beg your pardon, a freshly set up, freshly serviced guitar to make you want to play. Or sometimes just changing instruments. So you notice I've got the black PRS out today, so been taking a few different guitars to the gigs of late. And this weekend just gone, I took 3 guitars. I took the Maybach, I took the Baum Backwing, which you can see just hanging out over here. Played that on last week's stream. This guitar, the Baum, is really doing it for me in the studio, but is feeling kind of strange live. I think it's more to do with the fret height than anything else, because I'm so accustomed to these enormous frets that I have installed on all of my guitars. But it did sound pretty great. I think the scale length is warranting a slightly different string gauge to what I'm using right now. But even still, it kind of worked for me, and the Maybach was sounding great as usual. But this guitar is my like regular take out to any show kind of guitar, and I've been sat playing it today, and it's really just kind of working for me. So I feel like I'm back on a PRS kick right now. It's nice to have those options. Sometimes a different instrument will inspire you to play more, which is a good excuse for buying and owning loads of instruments, I guess. Not that I need any encouragement. Anyway, so yeah, chuffed about that. Very, very pleased. Who else do we have in the house? PJ says, Plex, there we go. If you haven't already done it, on your next service, I recommend a Plek. Had one of PRS's setups with this, superb, for sure, man. Plek machines, it's outrageous what they can accomplish. Now, there's nothing quite like a set of hands on a guitar to really get it fettled, because sometimes the measurements don't always line up with the actual play feel of the instrument, but the Plek can do things like get the frets so finely leveled that you're able to basically dial in whatever setup you want. And if you're someone like me that likes quite a finely tuned setup, it's gold, right? It's really, really cool. So yeah, can confirm, definitely worth your time. Who else do we have in the house? Larry Warren's here. Sacred Godslayer is here. We'll just say some quick hellos because we're talking about Plex. Mike Seedorf is in the house. Great to see you. He's here for some excellent brain food. Well, fingers crossed we got some for you. A better understanding of how and what makes us play the guitar. Big questions, but we like those. Now, got a question here from Falcornish regarding a solo. Now, I might actually answer this one up front. Normally I do the questions at the end of these streams, but I read this one before and I might actually answer this one up front. We'll get to that in a second. He's asking about a very particular lick in War Pigs, and I know the bit you're on about. It's the one that goes doodly 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 doodly, well described as 15th fret G, 12th fret B, then 12th fret high E, rinse and repeat very fast. And he can't get it working trying to sweep, economy pick, just can't get the timing. I know exactly what you mean. I know the lick you're on about. It's this one here that I would struggle to play quite quickly as well, which is this. I think you probably have to alternate pick it or do some combination of alternate economy if you're going to make this work. Now let's try a few different styles in this and see what we get to, but then I'll pose a solution. So I guess you could go... That's probably the way I would have to do it. It'd have to be economy picking, but that's alternate picking. That's quite a challenging little picking, I guess, picking passage, because we're having to do this weaving in and out of the strings business, which is very difficult, and it requires this kind of low, wide arc that we would associate with cross picking. Let me pose another way of playing this for you, right, very quickly, because it's an interesting lick, right? For everybody who's wondering, the lick in question is as follows. We play, I would probably bend it from 14, but 15 is fine. We'll say 14, 14th fret bend on the G string, B string 12, high E string 12. Play around and around and around. I am going to pose that instead of playing it in high E on 12, just move that to 17 on the B string. Or play the 14th, the 15th fret rather. That, to me, this little idea of one note and then 2 notes on a given string, we can then play with the Eric Johnson mechanic, which is this down, down, up. Well, you could if you could actually play the thing, but apparently I can't. Now that feels quicker and perhaps more efficient to me, so that's maybe the way I would do that. So there you go. If that's any help, you can have that one. That's how I play it anyway. Kim's in the house. Good to see you. Franz is here. Deadman Doogie Van Dugerson is here. Helmet Strap, I'm going to say hello to in a second because we've got a very good point there. We got some great troubleshooting in the chat for you guys trying to offer some advice. We love a bit of that, right? If you have answers to questions, drop them in the chat. This is not a one-way street. This is not me giving a lecture. This is us hanging out and talking about the guitar. So if you've got ideas on how our man Foghornish can fix his Warpig's problem, we want to hear from you. Who else do we have? Mike Seedorf. I think we've already said hello to you, Mike. It's great to see you, though. Steve McD is here. Deadman Doogie Van Dugerson says, I thought Economy Picking was just using the cheapest picks. Hey, there you go. Or the picks that last the longest, you know, repairing your picks, maybe? Who knows? Home Economics for Plectrums. Crankatom is tuning in, says he is going to have a break soon, unfortunately, because he's got the onset of trigger finger in his left middle finger. Now, that sounds terrible. That sounds like it really sucks, man. So, I'm hoping you're going to get better very soon. Wishing you the best on that, but what I will say is, as you pointed out here, it doesn't get in the way after warming up, but it's painful in the morning. I don't know. I'm not a doctor. I'm definitely not your doctor. I'm not even a doctor. But to me, if it feels okay when you're warmed up, you know, might be all right. The next thing I would say with this is this sounds like a perfect opportunity to become a proficient slide guitar player, because put it on your pinky finger, put it on your ring finger. You don't actually need this finger. It's not really going to do anything. You can just slide away to your heart's content. It's a really cool way to get around any left hand related injuries. If you have something to do with your finger, maybe you've cut a finger or something like that, or otherwise wounded yourself in your left hand, that's a good way to get around things. So hopefully that's the way to do it. Rude Dog says, give me a shout out. Have a shout out. Rude Dogs, great to see you. Ergo Hog is in the house. Who else do we have? Transparent is asking for more likes. I'm also asking you for more likes. Bernard Newton is here. Mal Riley is here. Lee Candle is here. Raphael is here. Our friend Khan is tuning in on Facebook. Block 18's here. Paul Lavelle is here on a break from a wrist injury brought on from too much playing. Oh no. We'll maybe talk about injury a little bit later on. Al Lindsay is here. Al, it's great to see you. I will indeed be at the Brum show. I'll see you there. I'll be on the Sunday. I'll be traveling down because gigs and things. Loads more comments coming in. I'll just quickly say some more hellos as we go. We've got to get through everybody, man. It's rude not to. Ricardo is in the house. Roy Callon is in the house with a great observation. My friend Pete is tuning in. Collection of fabulous guitars and amps, no less. Who else do we have? Very quickly. My knees hurt. So do mine. Just been squatting today. Mine do too. Dreams is in the house. Says good day. Steve Ford is here. My friend Craig is tuning in. Dylan Jessup is here. I think we've got everyone. If we've missed anyone other than Helmet Strap, I'll catch you in a little bit. I'll try and get through everybody if I can. These hellos, they're important to me, right? I like to say hi to everybody who's in the house, and then we can get started. But first of all, here's a good one from Helmet Strap saying, evening all, rookie error. I've been practicing speed and hand synchronization exercises for months. Last Tuesday, Sam Bell reminded us to make music. Oh dear, my chord changes and rhythm have suffered. I mean, hey, so please don't take from this that I'm saying, look, you shouldn't do any hand synchronization exercises. Let me take the shirt off because I'm getting a bit warm now. You shouldn't do any hand synchronization exercises. Far, far from it. I think this stuff is important. But let's not forget what our goal is here. Our goal, our objective is, and should always be, to make music. Right? Because that's the thing that we're doing. We're playing music with our guitars. So, yeah, totally agree. However, there are ways that you can take these exercises and you can make them musical, and we'll discuss that as we go forward. I think we've got everyone. Connor's just joined us. Connor, it's great to see you. Let's get stuck in. So, first things first, right? Let's talk about practice, the nature of practice, and what we can do to kickstart ourselves into practice when we've had a little bit of a layoff. And we're going to begin with the most obvious thing, which is to take this as an opportunity to get your basics together. Now, what do we mean by basics? This can mean all sorts of things, but if you've had a bit of time away from practice, it's a good opportunity for you to spend some time exploring things that will make you a better player, but maybe aren't super exciting to practice or even super challenging to practice when you are on it, when you're kind of in the practice zone, if that makes sense. So this may look like something like this. I'll give you an example from my own practice. So if I just kill this track very quickly and we fire up some drums, let's just have you. Hopefully you guys can hear the drums okay. I'm going to turn my monitors up a little bit so I can hear myself a little better. Now, when I had a little bit of a layoff myself, with a lot of travel, I found myself in a bit of a mess playing wise. I felt like my playing was really kind of in the bin, so to speak. So what I did, one of the things I did was sat down and worked on some fundamentals when it comes to finger vocabulary. Now, the cool thing about this, I'll show you what I'm talking about first, is that it's not super musical and doesn't require me to be terribly inspired, and it's also not terribly mentally challenging. So what I did was I took some scales. I took the 3-note per string fingering versions of all of the major scale modes. So we've got a Lydian version. I played them in G just because. Now I'm not having to learn these. That's not the challenge here. This is something I already know how to play. But I sat myself down and went, can I play through these using some common groupings and using some common intervals? So I decided to play through it in groups of 4, groups of 3, and then in thirds, which gave me this. Groups of 4. And there is a mess, because I was reading some comments. And so on and so forth. And I tried groups of 3 where I played. And so on and so forth. Thirds. Now, this is not me necessarily breaking any new practicing ground, because these are things that I practiced years ago, right? When I was a kid, I would sit and work on this stuff incessantly. I wanted to be able to play every scale variation with picking, with legato, with every potential permutation of, you know, thirds, fourths, fifths, sixths, sevenths, groups of 3, groups of 4, groups of 5, groups of 6, etc. Now, I'm not really breaking any new ground with my practice here because I've already done this stuff, but what's useful when I come back from a layoff is this is almost like giving your playing a once over. So a little bit like if you had a car that had sat for a while. Now, you're not a car, you're not a machine, you're a complex, adaptable biological organism. So we're not going to make too many machine analogies to you as a player because they kind of fall apart with one pardon me, in one very important way, which is that machines don't adapt and you, the player, does. But even still, if you'd had a car that had sat for, say, a month, say you've been away traveling, you wouldn't, hopefully you wouldn't, just sit down and go, okay, today I'm back at home, I need to drive somewhere, let me just start this car. You would probably check it over, right? You do things like you check the oil, you check the coolant, you check the tires, make sure the pressures were okay. You would maybe try the brakes a couple of times, make sure they're all right. Maybe give it a clean, make sure you can see out of the windows, this sort of thing. I'm not talking about anything serious. I'm not talking about replacing any parts or rebuilding a broken machine. I'm just talking about making sure that the fundamental workings of your car are kind of working, for want of a better word. What this will result in is a more pleasant driving experience for you. You sit down, you start the car after you've checked everything and you go, yep, it all works. Great. You have no anxiety over, ooh, well, will it explode? Have I got enough oil? Etc. Have I got enough fuel? Have I got enough coolant? Are my fluids where they should be? Do the tires, are they working? All the stuff that you can do yourself. If you're mechanically minded, you may be able to do more stuff. But for someone like me who just does basic maintenance, that helps a great deal, not just for the health of the car, but also for me as a driver, because then I can go about my day, I can go to where I need to go and I can be in the knowledge that everything works. And if something is off, I can fix it before I have to then go and use the car. Now, the same is true for your playing. So what we can do is we can take a look at your playing and make sure that everything kind of works and you haven't neglected any parts of your playing that might come and trip you up a little bit later down. Now, you could just address these problems when they arise, but if you take a second, assuming we've come back from a layoff, and get this stuff sorted, doesn't require a great deal of work. We're not talking about bringing it up to all-time personal record levels, but just having a bit of time playing this sort of stuff, making sure that you are capable of doing all these lines and ideas that you're likely to come across in your day-to-day playing will mean that when you then sit down to play more complex stuff, it'll work better. It'll be taken care of. You will find this a more motivating way of practicing and a way of kind of coming back from playing on a layoff. So other things that might constitute basics. Things like basics include things like string bending accuracy. They include things like being able to play without tension in your hands, being able to play simple and complex chord vocabulary in time, on time, when a song calls for it. There are lots of ways you can do this. And as far as the basics go, what I encourage you to do is maybe just do an audit. Maybe take a look at the things that you consider to be the basics and run over those. Now, you absolutely do not need to cover every single base with this, but by taking a bit of time to get the basics in check, this will give you a really solid springboard to restart your practice. Now, let's move on to the next thing we can talk about. The next thing we can talk about is what you should be practicing and what you should be taking this as an opportunity to work on. Now that we've got our basics together and we've got a little bit of playing under our fingers, playing that we're not necessarily emotionally attached to, we're not super excited about sitting down and playing, you know, G major, ascending and descending in thirds, but we've had a bit of time, the fingers are going in a non-threatening, non-stressful, low-consequence kind of way. We can then take a look at the most important aspects of playing and use this as an opportunity to really dig into the actual essence of why we play the guitar and what it is to be good at the guitar. So, here's the deal, right? I have yet to come across a better definition of being good at the guitar than this. Being good at the guitar is to play things that you like the sound of and not play things that you don't like the sound of. That sounds really reductionist, but I can't think of a better way to put it than that. If you are playing things and you like the sound of the things you are playing, and you can't think of ways that you'd like them to sound better, you've won, right? You've won. You're making solid. You're doing well at the guitar is what I'm trying to say, right? So this requires us to really zone in on what it is that we like about our playing, and there is nothing quite like a layoff to give you the clarity of mind to figure out what it is that you actually like about your own playing and what it is that you don't like about your own playing. So let's take a listen, right? Let's dig in and do some of this stuff. So we're going to do a little playthrough together. We'll play along with this brand new backing track, which is in C sharp minor. We're going to take a look at some aspects of your playing and some aspects of my playing that we both like. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to do the audit of my playing. I'll ask you to do the audit of your playing, right? We're going to play along together, and I want to know from you in the comment section what you like about your playing and maybe some things that you'd like to improve. It's not a bad thing to say, I don't like this thing about my playing, because none of this is permanent. If we have the realization, or we have the, I guess, the thought in our mind that when we're playing, if you don't like something, it's not fixed. It's not an attribute that you were born with. You know, it's not something that you can't change. It's a bit like saying, oh, I don't like my height. Well, you know, there's not a great deal you can do about that, unfortunately. But if you don't like the color of your shirt, you can change your shirt, right? Or if you're too warm, I don't like how warm this shirt is, like I was earlier, you can take the shirt off, right? For example, this is what we're talking about. So it's okay to not like things about your guitar playing because, as we've previously mentioned, you are adaptable and you can change things about your guitar playing. And this just gives you some guidance. It gives you a sense of, where am I going with this? But we also need to recognize the things that we do like about our playing. So let's get into it. I'm going to play along with this C sharp minor backing track. It's an awful lot of fun. Very quickly, if you're wondering what to play along, you could play this. It's a nice simple way to begin. We could take finger number 1, put it on fret number 9 on the lower E string, and we could play our minor pentatonic, playing big shape, little shape, times 3, big shape times 2. If you wanted to convert this into the minor scale, the Aeolian mode, we could plug in the second here. We could plug in the flat 6 here. We could plug in a second here. We could plug in a flat 6 here, another second here. You can play this any way your heart desires. You can play along with just the pentatonic, you can play along with the full minor scale. It is totally up to you. But we're going to play it together, right? Very quickly, let's throw this back on. It's at about 88 BPM. You can play whatever you want over this. We'll take a little bit of time to jam back and forward, and we'll make some audits about our own playing. So if I go like this, okay, you take a turn while it's still loud. So C sharp minor we're looking for. It can be minor pentatonic, it can be Aeolian. As we play, pay attention to the things that sound cool in your playing, and things that maybe sound, you know, you'd like them to sound a little different. So I'm going to go like this. I'm going to bring it down for the quiet section. Your turn. Same thing, but just a little bit quieter. Had so much fun making this track today. I had to play it on stream, right? It was calling to me, it was speaking to me. Okay, I'm gonna go a little bit further with this, and we'll see where we're at. So I'm gonna go. Take a turn, and then we'll sit and we'll work out what it is that we like and we don't like about our own playing. Now the best thing about this is nobody can make this decision for you. This is a decision that only you can make for yourself, which is why I'm not going to tell you what you are to like and what to not like. It's all entirely on you. Now let's pause the track there. A lot of fun. We got some dynamic stuff going on, really quite simple to play along, but even still. Now let me start with some things about my own playing. So, things that right now I am enjoying about my playing. I feel like, for whatever reason, my vibrato and my ability to kind of color a note is kind of on. I feel like that's kind of working for me right now. So I feel like we've got some cool expressive stuff going on. I'll give myself a big tick box on that and go, yeah, that's nice. The vibrato thing is working. That's actually been a bit of a pain lately. I feel like I've kind of been a bit in the weeds with the L vibrato lately, and this seems to be flying for me. It seems to be working. Other things that I'm really enjoying. I feel like my timing is quite good right now, but there's always room for improvement with timing. But I feel like that's kind of working. And I feel like some of the melodic playing, or the more melodic stuff, is it's working pretty well for me. Now, some of the things I'm not enjoying so much right now is I seem to be making some silly technical mistakes where I'm not quite getting certain notes out that I'm reaching for, and this could be for a variety of reasons. But maybe, for example, if I'm playing something like this, right away there was something in there. There were a couple of notes there that maybe could have been a little bit louder, a bit clearer, maybe a little better articulated, I guess. And that's something that I'm not enjoying particularly much about my playing. There's also some other things that are kind of drive me a bit nuts, which is, for all I mentioned my vibrato was there, I feel like there are sometimes notes that are a little bit, maybe not quite as well intonated as they could be. Now, I want to know from you, what have you noticed about your own playing that you really like and that you dislike, right? Well, we're being honest here because we're friends here, right? We can talk about this sort of stuff. This is not, some kind of like vehicle for everyone just to show off how great they are. We're here to learn and we're here to explore the guitar. This is a safe space, as they would say. So what am I going to do with this information? So I've got some things that I like and some things that I don't like. Well, this is good because now it gives me direction and it gives me some focus on the things that I maybe need to pay more attention to. And it also gives me a sense of what it is that I can lean on when it's time to have a bit more fun with the instrument, when it's time to make music, let's say. So with this in mind, I'm going to take those things that I decided I wasn't that jazzed about. Like my intonation is a little bit iffy sometimes, certainly with bends occasionally, but also sometimes I'm kind of maybe knocking the notes sharp a little bit, which is kind of irritating. And I'm going to devise some practice to target those things. And I'll use this as a vehicle to eliminate some things that maybe I don't like so much about my own playing. Then I'll take some time with, again, some practice with a backing track, and I'll take some time to celebrate the things that I am enjoying about my playing and really revel in those, because this is good, right? It's nice to be able to enjoy your playing and really kind of dig into the stuff that is cool. It's good for the soul, it's good for you as a musician, it's good for your self-confidence, but it's also good for your continuing development, because if we don't know what it is we like and things that we like about our own playing, how can we get better at playing things that we like, which ultimately is the goal, is getting better at playing things that we enjoy the sound of. Now, let me talk about how I'm going to devise some exercises, specifically some exercises for the intonation thing. So my intonation thing, what I'm going to do with this is I'm going to slow myself right down, and I'm going to work on listening very intently to my backing track and making sure that everything I play is as in tune sounding as I can get it. It's literally as simple as that. I'm going to focus my attention on playing whatever I want, but making sure everything is as in tune as I can get it. Now, this begins by being in tune, but we can also get into the weeds of what it is to be truly intonated here. So something Andy Timmons talked about with this, which I thought was really quite clever, is he talked about, what it is that separates good guitar players from slightly more ordinary guitar players. For some reason, my DI sound is still on. I was recording bass earlier on, and the DI is still active, which is what that sounds. I thought it sounded a bit strange. Right, I've turned it off now. I don't think it's coming through the stream. I don't send this to the stream mix, but through my monitors, I could hear the DI, and it was like, well, that's weird. Well, that's gone, thankfully. Right, there we go. I thought things sounded a little strange still. Okay, let me just take that lick there, this little passage, for whatever reason, I'm exaggerating it now, I've fallen into this strange habit of overplaying that line. Kind of overplaying my hand on this middle note, perhaps in an effort to get these notes out more cleanly. Now I can recognize this and I can go, right, okay, that's gonna tank my capacity to play things I like, so let's maybe address that. And what I'm gonna do here is I'm gonna take this guy, I'm gonna focus my attention on this middle note here, which is the one that's going sharp. That's better. Similarly, this vibrato note, for all the vibrato sounds nice, I feel like I'm centering it just a little bit sharp of where it should be. There was another one. That one could have been sweeter. Let's do it again. That was a little technical miss, but we'll get back to that. That was better. But again, that little line was nice, but it wasn't as well intonated as it could be. And again, this top note, coming back to that lick again to challenge myself after I've taken my eye off it for a while. That's starting to sing for me now. That's starting to make sense. Now, what this is boiling down to for me at this point with this business of like, oh, does this sound as good as it can, is it's forcing me to pay more attention to listening when I'm playing and really dialing in my ear. And I'm having to simplify the things that I'm playing. Even though some of this may seem quite complex, I'm having to simplify the things that I'm playing to allow myself to really zone in on how good it sounds. And this is very valuable when you come back from a layoff, because you may not have the capacity to play things that are at the top end of your skill level. You may be just, you know, maybe your skills are there, but they're not quite there. You're going to need a week or two just to kind of get yourself together, or maybe longer, who knows. But what you can do is you can focus on things like this, where you try and really set out your stall for focusing on sounding nice, right? Now, we've got some really cool observations coming in. So let's see what everyone's got to say. So our friend Dreams is saying, I feel like my timing and going in and out the time on purpose has become really good over time. There's a lot of times. I like that a lot, but I'm really struggling with correct left hand posture, including usage of the pinky. So there we go, right? Already what we've defined, what we've done is we've given ourselves some things that we like, that we can do more of, and that we can celebrate and enjoy in our practice time, but also some things where we go, okay, cool, this is a good chance for me to work on this stuff, because I know I need to get my left hand together, I know I need to get my pinky working. Maybe I'll do more of that right about now. That makes sense. I like that an awful lot. Here's one from Mal Riley. It's very cool here, saying, I like to come up with a melody that goes with the backing track and maintain that melody while going between solos. It's good for coming up with my own songs. I like that a lot. Now, that is very cool. Something I've been doing myself recently is not so much coming up with melodies, but I've been trying to do like a solid 8-bar solo, which has, I'm not really doing it on stream, because on stream I'm just having a bit of fun, but what I might do is I might sit down and go, okay, imagine that you are given Steve Lukather's job over this, right? And you, Steve Lukather can't make it, and all the other guitar players were killed in a horrible accident, so you're the only one that's left. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to try and take a solid 8-bar solo that works and has flow and has some kind of theme, I guess, to it, or certainly has a structure, and I'm going to get in, I'm going to get out. I'll rest very briefly, and then I'll come back and do it again. So that's a similar exercise. It's a lot of fun. It's kind of focusing on that making music aspect. What else do we have here? Here's a good one from Marcin saying, I play a lot of things that I hear in my head, but sometimes I land on the wrong note at the conclusion. Interesting. So what you might do there is you might take some time and focus your attention on sticking the landing. Like, make the landing the thing that is the important bit, but with this it can also come with pressure. Now, I don't know if you found this, but I find this myself. If you're in the middle of something really, really great, and or something that you feel is really, really great, and you kind of go, well, I've got to stick the landing here, and then you end up tensing up because you put loads of pressure on yourself to finish it really well. So I can totally relate, right? Or maybe you don't quite hit the note as well as you'd like it. Here's another interesting one from Transparent. Has always found it a problem to go from fast, aggressive playing back to slow, melodic stuff. Guess the pulse is too high. It could be, you know, it could well be that just regulating your I don't know, regulating your playing body temperature might be an issue, you know, just like actually practicing going from I'm going to play aggressively for a bar and then less aggressively for a bar, and getting used to switching gears like that can be an interesting thing. What's also interesting is it can be a real challenge to go from stuff that is difficult to stuff that is simple. So playing things that require you to have a lot of concentration and require a certain amount of effort to go to playing things that require a lot less effort, it can be difficult to switch those gears. So again, that's another thing that we can be playing with. We got a really nice one from Dreams commenting on the tone. Thank you very much, man. I appreciate it. It's a funny one, man. Like these Fishman Fluences, which is what's in this guitar. These are the Fluence Classics, which are a very underrated pickup set, in my opinion. Now, the Fluence Moderns get a lot of love in the metal community, but I don't think... I was talking to a few guys about this, specifically talking to Ken Susi and our friend Chris as well from Fishman, and Larry Fishman, who is just the man, right? Larry is such a baller. He's a great guy. But we're talking about the classics and how players who aren't metal players maybe don't necessarily understand how great these pickups are, and specifically how great they are with one feature engaged that maybe isn't... I'm just going to digress into tone for a second, but then we'll get back into practicing. But one feature in particular is the high frequency tilt, right? Which is, you'll not really see it for this this comment here. So what I'll do is I'll quickly move to these two cameras and show you now. Oh, it's not made it any different, but even still, right? So on this push-pull right here, I have the high frequency tilt engaged. As far as what's going on here, in case you're unfamiliar, these pickups come with 3 voices loaded into them. So I have a hot PAF in the bridge pickup, a regular wound PAF, and then a single coil in the bridge pickup. My neck pickup's a little different. The neck pickup is set to just the regular PAF, also just the regular PAF, and then the single coil. So I don't have voice 2 in the neck pickup active on this little voicing switch. I have to pick this volume control up to get it, because I want it, I just don't want it all the time. I like the idea of having hot and vintage versus vintage and vintage versus single coils. But on all of these voices, we have this function, which is rarely wired into these guitars, which is the HF tilt. Now, Fishman say that this is like using a long cable. I don't think that's the case. I think what it does is it takes all the extra fluenciness, is that a word? Fluenciness, which is a load of like high-end clarity and a load of extra clang and cut, and gets rid of it. So what you can have, if I go to a clean sound, I'll show you what I'm talking about here. This, for example, on the neck pickup, is the Fluence sound engaged. It's without the high frequency tilt on. Really bright compared to a regular PAF. Pick up the high frequency tilt. That to me is a big difference, certainly as a player. Now, you will not hear this as a high frequency shift as if I was turning the treble up and down on my amp. That's not what it's doing. It's changing with the way the amp is behaving. So it's not going to be some very profound deal where it's like, you know, oh, well, it's like changing speakers. That's not really what we're doing here. People will sometimes get a bit, I guess, a bit reductionist about where... like, oh, you can't really hear the difference. I'm like, yeah, you really can. You can feel the difference, specifically on some high gain tones. So for example, if I go here without the high frequency tilt engaged, let's go to the neck pickup. There's a load of like clarity at the start of the note. If I then take the tilt and engage it, there is a big difference going on there. So Fluence waffle, there we go. Anyway, on we go. So what else are we talking about here? Oh yes, practice things. So those are some things that we can pay attention to. We can pay attention to getting the basics in order, kind of getting a house together, doing these pre-flight checks, so to speak, and making sure that nothing's going to trip us up when we sit down to practice. We can also then really take time to listen to the things that we like about our playing and do more of those. and pay less attention to the things that we don't like about our playing, or rather play less of the things that we don't enjoy and try and fix those bits. It gives us a chance to focus on these things. But this is the last thing we're going to talk about, because some folks have mentioned injury specifically, and this is the other one, which is when you come back from a layoff, don't try and do what you did when you were in the swing of practicing, when you were in full flow. Here's the deal. Right, so injury. The most common type of injury with musicians is what we might call an overuse injury. It's very rare that we'll have an acute trauma injury as musicians, i.e. an acute trauma might be something like dropping a guitar on your hand, right? Very rare you'll do that. Sometimes you might get things where maybe you try and hybrid pick and you catch the nail and then pull a bit of the nail off. I've done that. Some trauma-related injuries. Right, the acute trauma. It's not really how it works. Most of the time what happens is we overuse certain parts of our body, certain parts of our playing anatomy, and that can lead us to getting injured. Now, here is the thing with overuse injuries. Overuse is a bit of a nebulous term because it implies that there is a certain amount of stuff that you can do, and anything beyond that will cause you problems. The issue with this is the amount of stuff that you can tolerate in terms of practice, in terms of playing, is it's dynamic. It changes. It's malleable. This is again why I raised that point earlier on where I said you are not a car. You are not a machine. You are a complex biological organism that's capable of adapting to all sorts of things. And this comes with some interesting consequences, because let's say, for example, you were practicing for 30 minutes every day and you were really going to town with the fast stuff and the challenging stuff and the stretchy stuff and big string bends, and you had big, thick, heavy strings on your guitar because your hands were nice and strong. And you were doing that right up until the point where you took a little bit of a breather, where you took 3 weeks off. You come back and you try and play the same stuff on the same guitar for the same amount of time. And what would have been a perfectly tolerable amount of guitar playing for you then may be less tolerable right now. What I'm getting at here is don't do too much too soon. Now, the beauty of this is when you have a layoff, you are what we might call in sports science detrained. You are sensitive to training stimulus or sensitive to playing stimulus. What this means in layman's terms is you don't need to do as much to make progress because you are primed, you are rested, and you have like kind of fertile ground, so to speak, or fertile fingers for making solid progress. Even though you are further back than you might have been before your layoff, you have this kind of like superpower where you then get to make more rapid progress than you would if you didn't take the layoff. Now, ultimately, this will just kind of get you back to where you were. It's not going to continue any further. It's not like there'll be some slingshot property where if you take a layoff, that accelerated progress will then continue all the way through the next guitar playing month, whatever. But what it does mean is that you don't need to do as much to get the goods, so to speak, and also that you probably shouldn't do so much to get the goods, because with this sensitivity to stimulus that comes from being detrained also comes a lower tolerance. So what this means is you are potentially more susceptible to overuse injuries. Now, I'm not saying that if you've not played for a few weeks and you pick the guitar up and you play for an hour, you will, get some tendinopathy going on. That's far from it, right? It's highly unlikely, but it is more likely when you're detrained than when you are in the flow of things. So take it easy. Give yourself some time to get used to playing the guitar again. An example for this is I'll use my own playing. As you guys know, I've had a little bit of a layoff with lots of travel and then Christmas and New Year and all that stuff prior to that. It was not an easy time to get practice in, let me tell you. 2 gigs this weekend. The gigs were fine. My playing was okay. It's not the best it's ever been, but it was all right. I was happy enough with it. But man alive, my fingertips are sore. Like really, really sore. Now, normally, doing a couple of gigs off the bat is like nothing because I play so much most of the time that I don't get sore. don't be silly. But my fingers, man, they were stiff and sore. And Anna, my bass player, Anna had like a huge blister on her middle finger on her right hand from just the first gig, which is unheard of, right? Anna's got like fingertips of steel, but you know, again, a lengthy layoff between gigs and not playing quite so much. What was perfectly fine for this finger is now, you know, it's a bit sore. And it's got a big old blister on. She soldiered on. She was a total trooper and nailed it. But for me, I ended up with some sore fingertips, certainly after the first night. And then I was like, all right, geez, okay, I'm going to have to take it easy tomorrow. But what do you do? Just like play half as many songs? Can't do that. Play half as many notes? Probably should do that. But, you know, I didn't. But it just sort of serves that to show that this stuff is dynamic. And you can put up with less and should do less when you're coming back from a layoff and you ease your way back in. Now, there are some more things we want to touch on with injury, and we've got some questions coming in. So maybe get a blister on your thumbs. Love a bit of that. So yes, I am going to really quickly take some questions because we've got some questions. Let's just see. Let's quickly throw this on here real quick. They've moved where the Q&A thing is, but there's the Q&A thing. Let's go to some questions. If you have questions, drop them down below. Love to hear from you. So, first one here is from our friend Rafael, who's just got it in. He says, I have a lot of tension. My right hand hurts, not anymore. My plectrum still slips off my thumb and index finger. It's good advice last week to almost pretend to play rather than try to play hard. For sure, right? Now, I wonder if there are maybe a few things going on here. So, the first thing I would look at, as far as a lot of tension and the right hand hurting, is to pay attention to how much force you're having to exert on the string. What do I mean by that? Well, what I mean is, if I go to these two cameras, if I'm strumming a chord, I can do it like this. Watch this string, by the way. Pay attention to the low E string, where the low E string barely moves because there's some flop in my pick grip. Or I can bash the thing. Now that requires a bit more strength from my hand, and a bit more strength from my wrist, which over time is probably, if anything's going to hurt me, it's probably that rather than this, let's say, because that repeated force there might cause issues. Now, here's the thing. If you're not in pain, and you spend enough time building up a tolerance to this, it's highly unlikely it's going to cause you any bother. But if you have a little bit of pain going on and we bash on the thing a bit too much, it's going to exacerbate it. So maybe a period of time where you play and you allow the discomfort in your right hand, the pain in the right hand, to be the thing that guides your playing. So make that the thing you're focusing on. And what I mean by this is don't worry so much about what it is you're playing in terms of the note content or any of that sort of thing. Just go, well, I'm just going to play stuff that doesn't hurt so much. What might that look like? Well, it might look like playing softly. And we don't really worry about how it sounds. We're just going to play stuff that is tolerable. Now, a little bit of pain is not an issue, right? Pain is not an automatic signifier of damage, right? It can be that, but it can be all sorts of other things too. For anybody who's interested, I encourage you to go and check out the resources on the biopsychosocial model of pain and injury, which suggests that, which is the current model of pain and injury used in medical science and sports science. So what it suggests is that pain has multiple inputs, some of which are biological in nature, some of which are psychological, some of which are social. And pain is defined in this sense as a perception of threat rather than as a signifier of tissue damage. So perception of threat means I feel like I'm going to do myself some harm. Now that can come from psychological inputs, social inputs. If you're used to feeling a particular certain way when you play and you go, oh, it hurts when I play this way, even if there's nothing bad happening, you can still experience pain, if that makes sense. And you can also have bad things happen and not experience pain. So don't be afraid of just a little bit of pain, but don't go crazy. Let's say if things really hurt and they're absolutely like 8 out of 10 pain, awful, don't push through. Just chill, just relax. But you can play and go, well, it's fine if I play this hard. When I start to dig in, oh, that hurts a bit. I'll just back out a little bit. And then over time, increase the amount of force we put in to the point where you can tolerate it better, etc., etc., etc. Anyway, on we go. We got some more questions. We're going to get to these as we go. Here is a good one. Again from Paul Lavelle, saying, on a break with a wrist injury. Right. First of all, I'm really sorry to hear that. That sucks, man. I know how you feel. Had some wrist injuries that I'm still dealing with. Right. I have a weird thing in both wrists that just won't go away. And when I say won't go away, I'm not constantly in pain. Far from it. It just means that it flares up every once in a while and has done for the past, how old am I? It has done for probably the last 20 years, and I can't imagine it's going to go anywhere. It's just one of those things where I'm like, oh well, wrists hurt sometimes. Similar to how my knees hurt sometimes, right? Just one of those things. You go, well, part of the human experience, isn't it? So the way I personally manage this is, if I can, I'll regulate how hard I'm playing, I'll regulate how much I'm playing. I'll try and play to tolerance. So if I have the option of playing a bit and it doesn't exacerbate things too much, I guess the way that I can measure this is by like, okay, after I'm done playing, does it really, really hurt? Or does it sort of go ow, 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 and then settles down, right? And if that's the case, I've probably done enough and probably shouldn't do any more. If things really, really hurt, I should probably do less, and I'll regulate my playing volume, for want of a better word, or my playing quantity that way. But sometimes that's not always an option. Sometimes you've got to just kind of, you're required to play things. Maybe you've got a gig, or, you've got sessions or whatever, and then you got to play. So in that case, we do things to make it so things don't hurt. Lighter gauge strings, playing more softly, using a lighter pick grip. And if the sound we're getting is maybe not 100% what we want it to be, so be it. It's not the end of the world, let me tell you. So we've got some other comments in here. Oh, very quickly, one from Cranker Tom saying, what kind of wraparound bridge is on your axe? It is a regular PRS stop tail piece. This guitar is 2008. It's officially the least popular PRS ever made, or the least popular USA PRS ever made, which is the McCarthy 2, which came... This is... Okay, so I love a bit of PRS, right? But this is PRS artist, as you guys know, very proud to be part of the PRS family, right? But this was a pretty silly guitar. Now, at its core, it's a 2008 McCarthy, and that is a good year for McCarthy's, right? They were making some really good guitars then. Wasn't crazy on the pickups from around that era, but this one came with some really nice ones. But what it also came with, see this little switch here, right? This is stock. This is a factory switch, right? It came with this switch. And this tone control didn't have a tone control, didn't have any coil splits. What it had instead was the MVC, Mastering Voice Control, which basically was an active EQ, which PRS users all went, nope, not interested in that. Spooks me out. Nope, absolutely not. We don't want circuits in our guitars. Now, myself, I'm not somebody who is put off by things like that. I think that can be really cool if it sounds good, but for a lot of folks, they were like, nah, nothing doing. And what it essentially did was when you switched it on, it gave you a center notch where you had the stock humbucker sound. You rolled it this way and it gave you kind of a pseudo single coil with no hum. You rolled it this way, it gave you what they called a heavy metal sound, which was the opposite of a heavy metal sound. It was a scooped tone, and with loads of bass, loads of high end, which is, yes, that's what the amp does, but it's the last thing you want for heavy metal. You want a tight, tucked bass, mid-focused tone from the guitar going into an amp that has the slight scoop going on. It was the opposite of heavy metal tone. Now, the upshot of this is people just didn't like it and didn't buy it, but the other thing is it comes with a battery compartment, which I have repurposed to house the Fluence USB charger, but I didn't do it. My friend Paul Richardson did it. Fabulous luthier. But what it does, it takes two 9-volt Duracells, big square batteries. Would you like to have a guess how many hours of playtime that you got out of two 9-volt batteries? 8. 8 hours. 8 hours. Now, I know there is this meme that PRS users are rich. I'm not. Absolutely not, right? That's like, I'm not paying for, 2 new Duracells, how much they are. Like, I don't even know. How much do 9 volts go for these days? Every 8 hours. Heaven forbid you leave the guitar plugged in and it drains them both. It was ridiculous. It was like, that is the stupidest thing I've ever heard in my entire life. Now, apart from that, guitar is absolutely tremendous. It's a wonderful instrument, but that was really dumb. So, pulled all that stuff out, put some fluences in, never been happier. So anyway, there you go. That's one of those. 8 hours. Friggin' ridiculous. Folks, we have run clean out of time. But we are back next week and every week with a live stream where we aim to make you a slightly better guitar player than when you left. To recap, things to do after a layoff. Do the following. Get the basics in order. Make sure nothing's going to trip you up, right? Focus on the things you like about your playing and doing more of those. The things you don't like about your playing and doing less of those. The last one is don't do as much as you did when you were in the swing of things. You don't need to, and it probably won't do you any good. There you go. 3 thoughts on what you should do coming back from a layoff. Next week, we are pivoting our attention to some practice strategies. Specifically, we're going to be doing some stuff on taking exercises and scaling them, changing them, designing them to get the best out of whatever exercise you happen to be playing. In the meantime, I'm going to jam out in this backing track again because this backing track is a lot of fun, right? I'm going to throw the delay on, we'll throw the big gain sound on, we'll pull the high frequency tilt because it sounds nice. Folks, I will see you next week. Take care of yourselves. Have a great week. We'll see you next Monday. Don't forget to hit like and subscribe on the way out. See you in a little bit.